Glory be to the triune God. Dearly beloved ones, today we shall continue with our study of St. John's Gospel, chapter 19, verses 38 through chapter 20, verses 10. Now, here we see Jesus is dead, and after that, Joseph of Arimathea, being a disciple of Jesus, but secretly for the fear of the Jews, asked Pilate that he might take away the body of Jesus. And Pilate gave him permission, so he came and took the body of Jesus. And Nicodemus, who at first came to Jesus by night, also came bringing a mixture of myrrh and aloes, but about 100 pounds. Then they took the body of Jesus, bound it in strips of linen with the spices, as the custom of the Jews is to bury. Now, in the place where he was crucified, there was a garden, and in the garden a new tomb in which no one had yet been laid. So, there they laid Jesus because of the Jews' preparation day, for the tomb was nearby. Now, Jesus is died, and what had to be done now must be done quickly, for the Sabbath was almost begun, and on the Sabbath no work could be done. The friends of Jesus were poor and could not have given him a fitting burial, but these two people came forward. Joseph of Arimathea was one. He had always been a disciple of Jesus. He was a great man and a member of the Sanhedrin. And up to now he had kept his discipleship secret, for he was afraid to make it known. Nicodemus was the other. It was the Jewish custom to wrap the bodies of the dead in linen clothes and to put sweet spices between the folds of the linen. Nicodemus brought enough spices for the burial of a king. So Joseph gave to Jesus a tomb, and Nicodemus gave him the clothes to wear within the tomb. Now we see both tragedy and glory here. The tragedy is that both the Nicodemus and Joseph were members of the Sanhedrin, but they were secret disciples of Jesus. Either they had absented themselves from the meeting of the Sanhedrin, which examined Jesus and formulated the charge against him, or they had sat silent through it all. What a difference it would have made to Jesus if among these condemning, hectoring voices, one voice had been raised in his support. But Nicodemus and Joseph were afraid. There is glory also. The death of Jesus had done for Joseph and Nicodemus what not even his life could do. No sooner had Jesus died on the cross than Joseph forgot his fear and bearded the Roman governor with a request for the body. No sooner had Jesus died on the cross than Nicodemus was there to bring a tribute that all men could see. The cowardice, the hesitation, the prudent concealment were all gone. Those who had been afraid when Jesus was alive declared for him in a way that everyone could see as soon as he was dead. Jesus had not been dead an hour when his own prophecy came true. When I be lifted from the earth, will draw all men to myself. We read that in John 12:32. It may be that the silence of Nicodemus or his absence from the Sanhedrin brought sorrow to Jesus, but it is certain that he knew of the way in which they cast their fear aside after the cross. The power of the cross was even then turning the coward into hero, and what waverer into the man who took an irrevocable decision for Christ. And there is another point. By burying Jesus, both Joseph of Arimathea and Nicodemus, they showed their devotion to Jesus publicly in stark contrast to the fearful disciples who had scattered. Now, coming to chapter 20, verses 1 to 10, we see Mary Magdalene coming to the tomb in the early hours and that she didn't find Jesus there. We know no one ever loved Jesus so much as Mary Magdalene. But contrary to the belief of other churches or denominations, the Orthodox Church inherited a completely different tradition about the life and times of Mary Magdalene. When others regard her as a scarlet from whom Jesus has driven away 7 demons, the Orthodox Church regard her as a lifelong virgin. The purity of her soul was a pure crystal. The fathers of the church, beginning from Saint John Chrysostom, deeply honored her. This applies both to the Orthodox and the Roman Catholic churches. And these church fathers state that she traveled to Rome, confessed the divinity of Christ before Emperor Tiberius, returned to Palestine accompanied by Saint Mary, the Mother of God, until her Dormition, worked together with the Apostle Peter and was exiled and preached the gospel in Marseille, acted as an apostle in Egypt, Syria, and Phoenicia, and came to Ephesus together with the theologian and the evangelist John, where she reposed. From there, her incorrupt relic was transferred to Constantinople in 890 AD by Emperor Leo the Wise. Our church honors her among the many holy relics of Simenopetra, that is of Simon Peter, a monastery of on Mount Athos. There is the relics of Saint Mary Magdalene, the myrrh-bearing women. Now, it was the custom in Palestine to visit the tomb of a loved one for 3 days after the body had been laid to rest. It was believed that for 3 days the spirit of the dead person hovered round the tomb, but then it departed because the body had become unrecognizable through decay. Jesus' friends could not come to the tomb on Sabbath because to make the journey then would have been to break the law. Sabbath is, of course, our Saturday, so it was on Sunday morning that Mary came to the tomb. She came very early. The word used for early in Greek is proi, P-R-O-I, which was the technical word for the last of the 4 watches into which the night was divided, which ran from 3 a.m. early in the morning to 6 a.m. It was still grey dark when Mary came because she could no longer stay away. When she arrived at the tomb, she was amazed and shocked. Tombs in ancient times were not commonly closed by doors. In front of the opening was a groove in the ground, and in the groove ran a stone, circular like a cart wheel, and the stone was wheeled into position to close the opening. Further, Saint Matthew in his Gospel tells us that the authorities had actually sealed the stone to make sure that no one would move it in Matthew 27:66. Mary was astonished to find it removed. 2 things may have entered her mind. She may have thought that the Jews had taken away Jesus' body, that not satisfied with killing him on a cross, they were inflicting further indignities on him. But there were ghoulish creatures who made it their business to rob tombs, and Mary may have thought that this had happened there. It was a situation Mary felt that she could not face herself, so she returned to the city to seek out Peter and John. Mary is a supreme instance of one who went on loving and believing even when she could not understand. And that is the love and belief which in end finds glory. One of the illuminating things in the story is that Peter was still the acknowledged leader of the apostolic band. It was to him that Mary went. In spite of his denial of Jesus, and a story like that would not be long in being broadcast, Peter was still the leader. So then it was to Peter and John that Mary went, and they immediately set out for the tomb. They went at a run, and John, who must have been a younger man than Peter since he lived on until the end of the century, outstripped Peter in this breathless race. When they came to the tomb, John looked in but went no farther. Peter, with typical impulsiveness, not only looked in but went in. For the moment, Peter was only amazed at the empty tomb, but things began to happen in John's mind. If someone had removed Jesus' body, if tomb robbers had been at work, why should they leave the grave clothes? Then something else struck him. The grave clothes were not disheveled and disarranged. They were lying there still in their folds. That is what the Greek means. The clothes for the body where the body had been. The napkin where the head had lain. The whole point of the description is that the grave clothes did not look as if they had been put off or taken off. They were lying there in the regular folds as if the body of Jesus had simply evaporated out of them. The sight suddenly penetrated into John's mind. He realized what had happened and he believed. It was not what he had read in Scripture which convinced him that Jesus had risen. It was what he saw with his own eyes. The part that love plays in the story is extraordinary. It was Mary who loved Jesus so much, who was first at the tomb. It was John, the disciple, whom Jesus loved and who loved Jesus, who was first to believe in the resurrection. That must always be John's great glory. He was the first man to understand and to believe. Love gave him eyes to read the signs and a mind to understand. We will end our session with this note today and we will continue the rest in the next session. May God bless you all.